what were your steps in, writing your first book?
So every writer has a different process. Some people wake up at 3:30 in the morning and, start writing for 6 hours straight. My process is very chaotic.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Rohan Plus One show. For this episode we have a special guest. She's an author and has just launched her latest book. Please introducing Safinah Danish Elahi. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for coming on the show firstly. I mean,
thank you for having me.
No worries. We were able to turn this around in literally 24 hours, which was great. So I really appreciate that. So let's get started. So just tell me a bit about, yourself and I know you're an author, right? But what were you doing before that?
I am a lawyer by training. I have also done my master's in publishing and fiction. But I started writing, I think about maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I've always been a reader, but I never thought I would publish, that I'd become a writer. I think the first novel that we were speaking about earlier as well, Eye on the Prize, I just had an idea. I started writing. I didn't know if it was any good. I didn't know the process of publishing. I didn't know how you convert your writing into a book and how do you find publishers. So I had no idea. Yeah. But then I found out, I asked around and I found an editor and I said that, could you please read this and tell me if it's any good? And she told me it's not bad. So I was like, okay, that's encouragement enough. I should continue this. And I ended up finishing that novel. And then you kind of shop around for a publisher and see if somebody's interested. And I had some, a publisher in Pakistan, Liberty Publishing, which kind of went ahead with the novel. And this current book, so I've also written a poetry collection by the name of The Unbridled Romance of Love and Pain. That was also done in Pakistan. This book, I was actually interning at a law firm. So this is after my law degree. And I always say that they didn't give me enough work. So I had too much free time. So I wrote my first draft there. And yeah, I think like they say, the rest is history, It was, I think 2020 maybe when I wrote. And then it takes a couple of years to, edit and then, get it out in the world. Yeah.
So what made you want to become an author? Was there any specific reason?
I mean, you kind of fantasize about these things, that, maybe you could become one, but it's not a career path that I ever thought about as a child or even, in university. I remember one of my writing professors telling me that an essay I wrote was great and I should look into this. But, I kind of brushed it off because, I've always been a reader, a very avid reader, and I still read quite a lot. But never did I think that, I would, when the first book did kind of okay, I believed that this could be done and I kept writing. And I remember my publisher telling me that there's more than one book in you. So they're one-time authors and then publishers can generally tell. So I also told you that I run a publishing house. So I've got a bit of both sides of the story. So I know how a book is published. It's called Reverie Publishers and it operates in Pakistan.
So in terms of, having your own publishing company, what made you want to set that up as well?
Yeah. So with my first novel, so I don't know if you know, but Pakistani writers generally did not publish in Pakistan. So we didn't have many avenues or publishing houses in Pakistan. We would publish either in India or the UK or the US. So what happened in the UK and the US is that somehow only stories get picked up which are for a Western audience. So, a story based in Karachi or based in Lahore would not have a global audience, right? But things started to change a few years ago where readers wanted to know more and they wanted authentic stories coming from, different places of the world. Also, there was a book ban between India and Pakistan in 2019. So anyone who published in India could actually not get their books in Pakistan. Okay. So there was a dearth of sort of finding places to publish. And then that's when, some publishing houses came up. And mine also, I decided to set up mine because I saw so many people writing and not having avenues to publish. We're a big country, and we've got a lot of writers, but not everyone can reach out to international publishers, especially for their first book. So I started Reverie Publishers as a platform for emerging writers in Pakistan. And as of now, I only distribute in Pakistan, but, I'm working on like rights and stuff to sell, internationally as well.
Because would you want to expand your publishing company into a more international thing?
Yeah. So I work with Penguin Random House India as well, and even HarperCollins. But I haven't yet distributed internationally. I've taken their books. I've bought rights to their books, but haven't done the other way around. Which is going to be more beneficial to me, when our local books start to go somewhere else. But it takes a time, like it takes a while to build your network as well, to kind of form a name for yourself, for your company, and know that it's authentic, and you have good practices and discipline, everything.
So in terms of writing the book, what were your steps in, writing your first book?
So every writer has a different process. Some people I know, like, because I do know quite a few writers now over the span of, many years that I've been writing and publishing. Some people wake up at 3:30 in the morning and, start writing for 6 hours straight. And that's because they're full-time writers and that's part of their day. My process is very chaotic. I mean, I usually have an idea. So I've done 2 novels now, and I've done the first draft of my 3rd novel as well.
Wow, okay.
And that novel was at Iowa, the residency that I was at the International Writers Program. And I remember going there, and I had like 10,000 words of something, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get some time and sort of polish this and continue this. And this is how it starts. You get an idea, you start building characters, you have like a rough sketch of, rough character sketches, somewhat have a plot, don't know the ending, don't know the middle yet. You just know that you've set up like one sort of, some scenes to start with. And then it can either run out of steam or you continue writing. So that particular story that I was working on ran out of steam. So I was in Iowa and I had these 10,000 words and I was like, I have time and I want to continue writing this. And I knew that it was done and I had to chug it. And I started writing completely something else. So even this book, I had an idea. I didn't have the time to sort of put it down. And I knew that I wanted to write a story about, a pair of siblings. I wanted to write a story about class structures that kind of, I wouldn't say intrigue me, but they, I've always wanted to sort of spread awareness around this theme, because a lot of it gets unnoticed. And with fiction, the thing is that you can start asking questions, from your reader. So this idea came, but again, I didn't really have time to put it together. And that happened at the law internship.
Oh, okay.
I finally got time.
So let's talk about the law internship. So where was that? And
it was in Karachi, and I did my law degree much later in life.
Oh, okay.
So I was, I was at a corporate law firm, and by that time I had already done the first novel. So writing was already happening. It's just that I was pursuing, I was looking at the timings and stuff, how it would work out. And I'm not practicing anymore because, this kind of took over, and being a lawyer is full-time work. So if you do that, then you can't sort of write and publish and I was also, I had also signed up for a master's then, which I've just got to submit a thesis now and it's almost complete. But yeah, I guess writing took over.
Yeah. And then you went to Iowa, right?
Yeah.
So how long were you there for, and what was it exactly that you were doing during your time there?
So I was there for 10 weeks, from August to November.
Okay.
And it's basically called the International Writers Program. It's the oldest writing residency in the world. It's I think 55 years old. And what happens is that they station, so my year had 32 writers from pretty much all over the world, like from Japan, China, Czech Republic, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Bangladesh, Pakistan. So one writer gets selected / nominated from each country, and it's very competitive. So the US State Department from Pakistan approached me and they said that, there's this competitive residency, but you have to stay there. So would you be willing to, sign up for it? And I said, sure, let's try it, because they said there's, I think, 156 nominations or something. And
Wow.
and in my head, I thought that I probably won't get it, right? So I was like, okay, sure, sign me up. And then they kind of shortlisted me in 3 writers, and then told me around July that I was selected. But like I mentioned, there were such achieved writers at the residency, script writers and poets and, quite renowned and wonderful people. So we were supposed to teach a master's class there. It was a translation class, an international literature class. Each of us did a panel reading. So they'd give us a topic and we had to write a paper and then present it. And then we also had a reading of our work. So we were given, an opportunity to sort of, whatever we wanted to do, read a short story or a novel or poetry or whatever. And then we had a lot of sort of free time to, mingle with other writers or have collaboration. So my work was translated into a couple of languages. My poetry was translated into Spanish, then later Korean. Even the Bangladeshi writer, he wants to translate my novel into, Bangla. So it's a good opportunity to sort of interact with other writers, because, when you're in your own country, you don't really get exposed to so much international literature. And so only people who have done sort of craft courses, internationally are able to connect with people like that. But I think that I took that opportunity to make some great friends, do some lovely writing. And I mean, it was time to myself, so.
And what was it like living in America compared to, living in Pakistan? Was there quite a big difference when you went there first?
Yes, I would say so. Because I was without my family. So, living 10 weeks without my children, without my, my daily sort of, to-do list routine was very different. And then Iowa is also very small. So they've got no high rises, and you can like see from really far away, and they've got like lush green gardens, and this was the first time I'd actually not been in Pakistan in fall. So Pakistan has summer and winter, like 10 months of summer and 2 months of winter. So there's no fall, there's like a little bit of spring, but I'd never seen the leaves shed or, them, them going red and brown and orange. So that was just amazing to watch. And then Iowa's very quiet versus Karachi being very chaotic and very busy. And I've lived that life, pretty much most of my life. So it was a good change. It was very slow paced. And so in Iowa, 80% of the people you meet are writers.
Okay.
The students are writers. They're doing the Iowa Writers Workshop, or they're in the program, or they're staff of the program. So it's very sort of niche and small. So I think that experience was pretty nice. And then we were in Chicago and New York as well, which was completely different. I'd been to Chicago and New York before, but not as a writer, not with a group of writers. So we explored, we went to like bookstores and had workshops. So it was an interesting, I think, experience. And the US was, they're very friendly. So
did you miss like the desi food and stuff? Did you miss it quite a bit?
Actually,
Okay.
we used to rent a kitchen, and I'm not a big fan of cooking.
No.
But somehow I wanted halal food, so I used to get my chicken and stuff, and we used to rent the kitchen every week. And not all the writers, but some of the writers would cook with me their own cuisine. So it was really nice. Like every Wednesday we used to sit down and have each other's food, and it was like a cultural experience as well. But otherwise, no. I can live on leaves. So
okay.
It's not.
Okay, so let's talk about your books, right? So the first book, was it called Eye
on the Prize?
Eye on the Prize. So let's talk about about that.
So Eye on the Prize was conceived when I was sitting at my daughter's sports day, and there was it was like a movie going on in front of me. There were races, the parents were like really pumped up, and there were, I think, about 8 to 10 children per race, and obviously like one wins and there's like one runners up or like two, and the 7 would leave the race looking all disappointed, and their parents were so disappointed. And I'm like, why is nobody talking about this? Like this insane competition of private schooling where the parents seem to be more, into competition and being competitive and winning than the children, because I mean they're like 8, 9, 10-year-olds, right? So they don't really care. Like they're like, okay, haha, we got a medal, but it's not life or death for them. But for the parents, like I could see them like turn red and scream and shout. And so I kind of saw that there's a story there, and it's a larger story on society based on children who are in the same sort of grade. And we see like 3 different stories coming up, and every story has like their eye on the prize, but their prize is different. So it's also on the theme that all that glitters is not gold. Everybody has their problems, and they're these ambitious sort of 3 main characters, 3 women. And I think the reason that the show itself is also it's being converted into a TV show. So the reason it's being appreciated is also because mainstream media doesn't show ambitious women.
Okay.
So it's kind of a dichotomy that they're so they're so strong, and yet I don't know if they're fighting for the right cause. So it's different for all 3 of them.
And in terms of making it into series, was that kind of your decision, or were you approached for it?
Yeah, so it was kind of like a combination, and the channel was meant to be launched, I think, a year ago. They liked the story, they liked the production. Wajahat Rauf directed it. It turned out really great with the actors, and the script being converted in such a crisp manner, because usually I don't watch many dramas. I mean, some great dramas have come out of Pakistan, but this is like just a fresher sort of look into Pakistani society.
And in terms of books being remade into like films and TV series, is that something like you are a fan of, or?
Yeah, I mean, if it's done well. I have seen some horrible adaptations.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a novel being converted into a film, you have to cut off a lot of things, because the novel is more detailed.
Yep.
But series works better because you can sort of go through with the story. But saying that, I've seen some really great adaptations as well, and of course you have a larger audience. The book does not. Most books don't reach that many people. Only the prize winners would reach, or only books that have been adapted, people will pick them up and be like, oh, this is a great novel as well. But yeah, I am a fan, and especially like if it's my book.
Yeah, of course. And how long did that book take to write?
So I'm a fast writer.
Oh, okay.
It usually takes me 3 to 6 months, sometimes even less, to do the first draft. But then the work starts after the first draft, because sometimes it's too short, sometimes it's too long, sometimes it's not working, something or the other within the story is just not working. So even this, I guess from the time that it was conceived to now, it's been 3 years.
Okay.
And I've heard of books that have taken up to 10 years.
Wow.
So people actually have spent a decade working on one novel,
And how would you manage that in, your family lifestyle and stuff? How would you juggle everything?
So with my work, the good part is that it's flexible. That is also the bad part because sometimes you have too much work, and sometimes you have,
Not enough.
Yeah, not enough. So, and I am a person of routine. So, if I don't have enough, then I'd just be like, okay, I'll take on more projects. And then when more projects come in, then I'm overburdened with, because it's possible that my own writing or editing is going on, and then I'm editing somebody else's work at the same time. And that needs to be released. And, so it kind of clashes sometimes as well. But I'd like to think that I manage my time well. So far, I think.
Okay, so let's talk about your latest book now. So it just launched here, was it yesterday, right?
Yes.
So how was the launch first?
The launch was actually wonderful. It's really funny because my husband told me quite a while ago I think when I told him that I have a publisher in the UK, he's like, oh, do you know what? You should do your book launch at Waterstones, Gower Street. And I just, I looked at it and I'm like, that's really not up to me, like why would, they agree to launch my book, they'll probably look for people who are more sort of, they've sold before or they're more famous so that they sell tickets and the book does well. And funnily, it's the same Waterstones that my publisher reached out to and they invited me and we had a full house yesterday. A lot of friends and family and other readers who follow the publishing house and through Waterstones, a lot of people showed up. They really appreciated the talk. Aisha Malik, who's also an author, she was moderating my launch and I think she was brilliant, and I also somehow managed to not sound completely stupid.
Okay, so tell us a bit more about the book itself and what it's about.
Yeah, so the story revolves around three main characters. There's Zuhaib, Misha, and Nadia. Misha and Nadia are best friends. The dynamic, however, between the two is that Misha and Zuhaib's parents have hired Nadia's mum as their nanny.
Okay.
So there is a class dynamic there, which the children are kind of unaware of. But in the course of the story, you see things shifting between Nadia and Misha as well. And then also I tried to show that even though the children weren't aware of their class difference, the adults were pretty aware. So, there are different scenes that I've put in which like, you can tell that, Nadia is starting to realize that she's not equal to Misha. So the story sort of revolves around that, and then it's also told in a flashback. So Misha's voice is from when she's young, and then we see Nadia and Zuhaib's voice in current times. And it's about loss and grief and mental health and a little bit of harassment. Just a daily life, sort of story. But I'm hoping that, we were talking about it yesterday at the launch as well, that I'm hoping that it's right, it's asking the right questions from the reader, because I think that's what fiction does. It has to ask the right questions.
Okay, and in terms of, when you were writing this book, where did the ideas, for the characters, all come in? And yeah, what was your creative process?
Yeah, so I based the place on my childhood home. And I knew I wanted to base a story there. I pictured that home and I kind of wrote about it. But the characters, the story was not the story that has become the idle stance of the Tippler Pigeon. But I did want to write a story about, these three characters who go through something traumatic, and what are the effects of such trauma? How does the society react to it? And yeah, hopefully it's it's received well.
Okay, so what we're gonna do to close the show off is, if you don't mind, would you like to read a few words just so we get a little insight into the book itself?
So I was telling you that I read the first few pages
at the launch,
because I wasn't prepared. But I'm just gonna read very little because it gets a bit boring. But it's so a lot of people have also asked me why this name, why the idle stance of the Tippler Pigeon. So I tried to sort of put it within the story, so when the reader's going through it, they'll be like,
that's why it's called that.
Why. So I'm just going to read that. So it's from Misha's perspective, who's 8 years old. And this part is in Karachi, Pakistan. And she's out for a morning walk with her dad, who she calls Baba, and Zuhaib, her brother, who's 3 years older, 4 years older than her. So Misha goes, do you see that? No, Baba goes, do you see that bird, Misha? Baba asks, pointing to a string of pigeons lined up on the thick electric wires connected to the poles. Baba, those are pigeons, not birds, I say coyly, as if I know so much more than him. Well, yes, a pigeon is a kind of a bird. And do you know what kind of pigeons those are? I don't know. Grey pigeons? Haha, yes, Misha, grey pigeons. That's the perfect type. Such a dodo you are, Bhai says, jeering. So, grey pigeons can be a type of pigeon. What are you, a bird scientist? Bird scientist? You mean ornithologist? Bhai keels over laughing. hey, bache, don't make me regret bringing you guys here. So they kind of have a sibling dynamic where, they're teasing each other mostly. They're sort of grey, but they're called Tippler pigeons. Baba resumes. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. What's so special about them? There are lots of things special about them. Firstly, they're very intelligent, just like you, he says to me, smiling. I broaden my chest, just like I see Bhai doing when he feels proud about something he does and is complimented on it. I also manage to steal a glance towards Bhai, who makes a face at me, this time quietly. Second, they have exceptional endurance. What does that mean? I ask, confused. Baba has this habit of using really big words sometimes. They fly right over my head before I can even pronounce them in my mind. It means they're tough. They may not look it, but they are. They can fly for almost an entire day, 20 hours or so. But they look so lazy, just sitting in a line, so idle, like they have no worries, Bhai says. Yes, Sohaib, but we can't be so quick to judge, can we? These birds are so tough and so intelligent that they're flying competitions they're entered into. People train them and then they get prizes if their Tippler wins. Sort of like a dog race, but for birds. And in the sky, I say smugly. Haha, yes, exactly like that.
So that's where the name so we can see where the name comes from. Thank you so much for coming on the show. If you could leave one piece of advice for, aspiring writers, what would it be?
I think it would be to be resilient. If you've written something, don't think it's the best you can produce. I think one thing that I've learned in my sort of time writing is that I need to keep learning and keep reading and keep thinking that the writing can be better, so keep working at it. Like, some writers reach out to me as well and they've written like 10 pages and they'd be like, oh, I'm a writer, what do I do? But first you've got to put in the work, and be humble to the fact that maybe it's not that good, because there's so many writers out there and so many books, right? Why should anyone read your story? What do you have to share and what do you have to tell? So when you come up with a story that has, that power to change something, you should stick to it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And what we'll do is we'll put a link to the book, so everyone, you can make sure you check it out as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. That's a wrap, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.